All right, everyone, welcome to the first episode of One Night Stand with Wasted with Wise. Well, not Wasted with Wise Old Gamer, if you will. So this podcast is a little bit different than the prior podcast. The prior podcast, Wasted, was one where we all get together on a Friday night, hanging out, drinking, shooting the shit, and going fucking crazy in the process, right? So this one is a little bit more different than that. This one is a little bit more serious and somber. It's more topic specific, if you will, than the other one. The other one is more like news based and everything like that. So I got in my podcast for this first episode, SupaNova Gaming. Say hello, sir.
What's it doing?
Calirex, my man, how you doing? Cali?
Sorry, muted there. Was looking for something, but I'm good. Thank you for having me on.
Cool. And KY, how are you doing, boss?
Oh, KY's doing good in the house tonight, rocking the 24-inch biceps. This is KY Bob. I'm wet even when I'm dry. Yeah.
All right, and David, and we're expecting David Faulkner. Okay, David, how are you doing, boss? Just in time. Yeah, I can hear you guys. Just in time. How are you doing?
Doing well now. The bloody Streamlabs let me in.
Yeah. Well, this is the whole theme about this podcast. This is a lot more laid back and somber than the Wasted. The Wasted is more like amp to 10. This is more of us being just normal. Like you would say, like Wasted is me at 10. This is me at normal. And I think I just wanted to get together and just, converse about a specific topic. And we're normal people. Like the thing I think about this channel is this, that we are just people who have lives. As everyone knows, everyone should know this by now, that I'm a teacher. KY, you're in computers. David, I don't know, you're in something in finance. I don't know exactly what that is, but something in finance. Supa, yeah, I don't know. You're into something. I don't know what it is.
Oh,
and
my
Callie, yeah, well, and you're in a wheelchair.
Yes.
Yeah. And Callie, you are a student, right?
Well, I graduated recently, so no longer a student. I graduated in film.
Well, you see, we are all like, we're not YouTubers, we're not influencers, we're not people who do this like professionally for a living. We're just normal people who have a really strong passion towards gaming and games in general. And that's where this podcast is going for. Like, this is going to be a somber podcast where we're sort of going to be talking about just one topic at a time. It's not going to be every week or every 2 weeks. It's going to be whenever a topic arises that we are sort of compelled to get together to talk about. That's why we call it One Night Stand, because it's not a regular thing like Wasted is. You got to get wasted weekly, but one night stands, they happen a little bit rarely, so there you go. It's one of the best experiences I've had were one night stands. But anyways, I do want to get into this whole thing. So what motivated this was, I was looking last night and surfing YouTube and Twitter and everything like that. And of course you had the normal stuff with PlayStation, Xbox, but then, there was a lot of these Nintendo guys, people who are not even Nintendo guys, talking about this next platform coming out from Nintendo. And, I was just reflecting about this new transition for Nintendo from the Switch to the Switch 2. And I can say unequivocally, if it wasn't for that console, the NES, I would not be a gamer. I mean, that's straight up. I mean, like I lived through the crash of the Atari 2600 with the whole ET fiasco debacle and things being buried in the sand in the New Mexico desert or whatever. And to be honest with you, the 2600 never compelled me. I had plenty of games on it. Like I had the Combat, I had Kaboom, I had, Pitfall, plenty more. But nothing made me really enjoy this and make this a regular pastime for me than before Nintendo. And I do remember the first Christmas when it launched. I wanted it really badly because all my friends were getting it. And my father, we had just moved. Well, we were just recently from overseas. So, it was not that anything he could afford at that time. And he said, nah, maybe next year when it goes on sale and everything like that. I was very disappointed, but I understood. But then like Christmas morning when there was that big old box and I opened it from the tree, and it was the NES with the Zapper and Rob gaming robot and the Super Mario Duck Hunt double pack. Dude, I mean, the rest was history. Me being a staunch gamer from there on out. And I mean, this is what sort of compelled this topic. It's about like Nintendo's past, Nintendo's present, Nintendo's future, all good and bad, and sort of what we individually enjoyed from this publisher. We always are quick, especially on Wasted, to shit on either Nintendo, Xbox, PlayStation, but we have to understand these were the developers, and in Sega as well, that made us what we are right now as gamers. And if it wasn't for their, what were they doing? And yes, you could say they're just trying to make money, but if it wasn't for what they did, none of us would be occupying this platform right now. So, and Nintendo for me, even trumps, in my opinion, PlayStation and Xbox because, it was like the first console for me. And I mean, with Mario, I remember playing it and then like going to the school and going on during lunch or during recess, sitting around and talking about, oh, can you do this? Did you find this warp pipe? Did you find this? And this was doubly carried forward with Zelda and all of the places you could bomb and all of these little, it's a secret to everyone, and like the little goblin doing grumble, what the heck does that even mean, where to get the red ring, etc. This is what we talked about. This was our social media back in the day, back when I was a kid. And I always look at that and just am appreciative of Nintendo for sort of doing all of this. And you might say the Nintendo of old is not the Nintendo of new, and it is what it is. And they might be, milking their franchises to death, which also we might get into, but you can't take away how that resonated with me when I was a kid. And it was a self-perpetuating loop. It kept feeding on itself over and over, game after game. Excite Bike, Punch Out, famously. How in God's name do you beat? So I was stuck on Soda Popinski for over a month. I threw my controller so many times on the floor with that guy, and one of my friends told me how to do it finally. Macho Man. I mean, it goes on and on. So that's what I want to talk about first, like your memories of the Nintendo, whatever generation of Nintendo that I might be. For me, it was the NES. So let me go ahead and start off with KY. What about you? Do you have any fond memories or recollection of Nintendo or Nintendo games?
Oh, well, yeah, actually, I do. I was a wee young child back in the day when the SNES, the Nintendo Entertainment System. No, that was a Super Nintendo. That was what we called the SNES. Well,
the NES.
Yeah, the NES, like like Nessie, like Loch Ness. Yeah. Yeah, I wanted it. My parents got it for me for Christmas, and they didn't tell me about it, so I had explained that I wanted it, and that Christmas morning, it was not under the tree, and I remember sobbing at the kitchen table because I didn't get what I wanted, spoiled little brat that I was. And here my mother comes down with a package. She comes down the hallway and sits it on the table in front of me. And she said, for some reason, this one didn't get put under the tree. I was, wow, yeah. So I had a Super Nintendo. I mean, a regular Nintendo, and it was Duck Hunt, and it was Super Mario Brothers, and yeah. And it started then, and I played that thing all the way up to the point where you had to blow in the cartridge to get it to work, and you had to set, like, you would go and push the cartridge down, but then you had to put something above it so that it would, the game's the copper.
You wore out the spring mechanism in the first NES. Huh?
No, the spring mechanism worked fine, but the very low grade copper that they used on on that console, that you push it down and it would lock, and then you would push it down again and it will unlock. Well, for some reason, if you pushed it down to unlock it and only let it up just a little bit, then you would make a better connection and your games would actually play. I wore that thing out. It was insane.
What game would you say would you look at as the fondest go-to memory when it comes to like Nintendo games and stuff like that?
Excite Bike,
really?
Hands down, Excite Bike.
Why? What about Excite Bike was the thing of that above some of the other games that were on at that time?
Because it was cool.
Like,
it was
what
cool.
Was it the track building editor, or like the fact that you could build your own track and then race on it, or what? What was it like?
I used the track editor a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, it was just the racing, and I had never, the games that were out at that time. They were like, you had your adventure games, your earlier RPGs, and you had Mario, of course, but I don't remember any games back then doing what Excite Bike did.
With overheating, yeah.
Oh God, I hated that.
Cool. So Excite Bike, huh? All right.
Oh yeah, it was definitely Excite Bike.
Cool. Let me go to you next, David. What do you remember, like, fondly from your yesteryears, if you will, about Nintendo games, Nintendo platforms, anything that sort of resonated to you as a child?
Yeah, so my childhood experience with Nintendo was with the Game Boy system, handhelds. I had a Sega Mega Drive 2 when for the home console when I first started gaming, but the Game Boy showed up under the Christmas tree one year with Super Mario 3, the Wario game, and Tetris and a couple of others. And then so we had that, and then we wore that out, the original one, and then I got a Game Boy Pocket, and that came with a couple of Pokemon games, and I wore that one out and had a Game Boy Color, and
wow,
didn't quite wear that one out, but the best, because grew up out in the middle of the country. The best thing about those systems was you didn't need the internet because we didn't have the internet, but just plug the cartridge in and they were bulletproof. You could get full of dust, you just, as KY said, you just blow it out and it works. Don't have to worry about scratches. You could drop it, it would bounce. The screen was, the black and white screen was easy. You didn't have to worry about pixels or anything like that. And just, simple games.
The question is, since you're from Australia, I remember Nintendo used to release their consoles with different names in different regions. Like, for example, famously, like in Japan, it was a Famicom. And here it was, of course, the NES. In India, it was, I don't want to say Katana. Katana was something else, but there was another name given. It started with a D, and it wasn't.
I'll oracle it.
Yeah, it was like a name for the NES there. And I remember it being like prohibitively expensive. It was
called
expensive.
The Samurai Electronic TV Game System.
Yeah, Samurai. That was it. It was Samurai. So what do they call it in Australia? Was it any different name, or was it the NES or a Famicom, or what did they call it under the name, or what?
So we were a very small market back then, but we're on the same PAL, same as Japan, and 80s, 90s, early 2000s, Australia and Japan for some reason got along really well economically. Suppose that they forgot about all the stuff that happened 60 years prior. And we just got whatever the straight English translation of what they called it was. So we had the NES, Nintendo Entertainment System, was what the original one called, and then Super Nintendo Entertainment System came next. We did have some that came in, used to be able to import the NTSC ones if you wanted the higher frame rates. And they would come in as the Super Famicom or the Super Comboy. depending on whichever one, wherever you got it from. But yeah, most of them were NES and SNES.
What was your go-to game from that catalog?
Oh,
The one
The
go-to
one that-
game. Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of good games, but like if you had to say there was one that was like your goat for that generation or that span of time, what would it be?
So again, being Game Boy games, the one that I liked the most, or used to play the most, was I think I played Pokemon Red and Blue, 2 or 3 complete runs, so from scratch to finished Pokedex a couple of times.
What was it about Pokemon that sort of allured you to it?
I just enjoyed the turn-based JRPG, train skill, improve, and the strategy that comes with it. I'm very much drawn with turn-based games for the strategy element. So you sort of plan, prepare. You can fight from underneath. You can take on bosses that are levels above you if you've got the right support stuff, and if you play it well, you can actually advance a fair way without needing to over level, or you can go the other option, and which is train and over level yourself to the hilt, and then belt the pants off everyone that comes near you. But it was those sort of games, the ones I like the most. I played a lot of Super Mario 3, and I just can't remember what the other one was that I had. They were the side-scrolling Mario style games, and I never really clicked so much with those ones. I preferred the ones that had a story that was on the screen rather than do the level quick story bite. And I've never really liked side scrollers, which is odd because I absolutely loved the Castlevania games. But yeah, most
you
of
said
them
you liked it or did not like it?
I did. I love the Castlevania games, but I suck at side scrollers. I didn't.
1, 2, or
never really
3?
been a fan. So
Which one? 1, 2, or 3?
one. I
One?
like the
Okay,
originals.
okay,
I
the
always like the
OG.
originals. Yep. But yeah, I just like the and we had all different types of games, but the Pokemon ones are the ones we played the most as kids. And that was really big in Australia at the time as well. The TV series, and was all over TV and all over the place everywhere. So yeah, they're probably my fondest memories. I've got it sitting in a cupboard here somewhere. I don't throw anything away. I'm a terrible hoarder. I've got them sitting in a cupboard here somewhere with all of them on. The one thing that I did have that was the weirdest one is they had, was it Perfect Dark, had a Game Boy release, and it came with
Was
a
that a
Rumble
thing?
pack.
I did not even know that was
Yeah.
a thing.
Yeah, I've got it here in the cupboard somewhere. I'm pretty sure it was Perfect Dark because you could, it had this. It was an oversized cartridge that you could fit into the Game Boy, and it had you put a AAA battery in the top of it, and it had a rumble, just an off-centered cam, and every time you got shot or you fired your gun, the thing would vibrate.
I did not even know that something like that even existed. That was like that's new to me. Wow.
That was cool, and that came out before they had the camera and before they had the light and all the other stuff.
Oh wow.
When we ran it low on batteries, we had an adapter. We just plug it straight in the wall and just sit there playing it. But
did you buy all those little accessories that other third-party makers made for the Game Boy with a magnifying screen and a light? Because it had that pea green.
Yeah.
It was abysmal to look at.
It was a
it
freaking
was
calculator screen.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's insulting the calculator, So
Yeah. No, we never got a lot of that stuff down here. It was pretty much whatever the local shop had was what we were able to access. Xenoblade, that was the other one. Sorry, the one I couldn't think of before. Xenoblade had a couple of Game Boy releases as well.
that's a new one to me. Xenoblade. I did not know Xenoblade.
The prior. Sorry, there was a series that fed into the Xenoblade series, and it had, I can't remember if it was called that or something else elsewhere, but there was a Game Boy one of that popped out as well. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so let me pivot to you, Super. I'm going to come to you last, Callie, because you're the youngest on the podcast right now. So I'd like to get your take on it last. But Super, what about you? any fond memories of Nintendo, and what would you say was your goat in that generation? SNES, Game Boys,
Oh,
and
in
NES.
an immense amount. Like it shaped my childhood. Granted, I'm a lot younger than you guys, so I was actually born the same month that the NES launched in America. It launched October 1985. I was born Halloween 1985.
Oh
But
wow.
still, the earliest memories I have of gaming, I had an Atari 2600, a ColecoVision, and then I had an NES. And the NES is obviously the one I went to the most for obvious reasons. Like the game pad's better and the games were better. But I had the Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt combo that I played the hell out of.
Mhm.
Um, and then uh, I also had cousins in New Jersey. They're technically my mom's cousins. They're my second cousins, but we would go visit them all the time in New Jersey because I lived in New York, at the time. And they had Super Mario Brothers 3. And man, we played the hell out of Super Mario Brothers 3. And I've have like vivid memories. And this is like peak Super Mario hype for that system, right? This is
Mhm.
Super Mario Brothers 3 came out. We had the Super Mario Brothers Super Show with Captain Lou Albano out at the same time. You had all the McDonald's toys. Like
Mhm.
Mario was freaking everywhere with the freaking Tanuki ears and the tail and everything. But I remember going to visit my second cousins in New Jersey, always playing Super Mario Bros. 3, and them showing me, the tricks, like crouching on the little floating platforms that you can go behind the levels, all the secrets and shit. And yeah, like it was just we played that all the time. They also had the track and field with the freaking mat. We had to freaking run on the mat and hop the hurdles.
Mhm.
And yeah, man, like Nintendo up until the Genesis, like Nintendo was like life.
Well, I remember with Mario. Remember this with what you. It's funny that you mentioned Mario 3, because I remember like this commercial, the famous commercial from. Let me see if I can play it here. Yeah, y'all remember this commercial? So this was the one where they were all chanting and
Oh
everything,
yeah,
and
and they
then
zoom out to
yeah,
make his face.
yeah, they zoom out to make his
Yeah,
face. That was peak Nintendo back in the day. Like that commercial was so fucking hype. That was like I remember that commercial like it was yesterday. That commercial like gave you the warm fuzzies. It was really funny because you said Super Mario 3, and I remember this because back in the day there were no websites because there's no internet back in the day. So all the
yeah.
information you got was from like
Nintendo
GamePro,
Power.
Nintendo Power, and there was like this small blurb one day in Nintendo Power. It had just been like a couple of months after Super Mario 2 was released. And they had a blurb in one of the back pages where they were talking about rumors and stuff. They had a little section for rumors. And it said, by the way, Super Mario Brothers 3 in development. And then the next, I think it was like 3 or 4 uh, editions later, they actually had a picture of Mario and it had him on the Tanuki. I mean, dude, I was erupting. I
Or
was
what
like,
about
fucking,
all the hype when it debuted in The Wizard?
oh shit, the wizard,
Remember
man, the
that?
wizard. Oh my
It
God.
debuted in that one scene in The Wizard. That
Yeah.
was like the first glimpse we got of Super Mario Brothers 3. That was so cool.
Oh yeah, that was epic. And I remember. I remember. Of course, back in the day, we didn't know any better. But we know now that it was just basically a commercial for Nintendo,
Oh
essentially.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but like the Power Glove and everything like that. It's like Rad
Oh,
Racer, all that shit. That shit was dope as fuck.
yeah, the
Back in.
Power Glove, the most useless peripheral known
Exactly.
to man. It
But
didn't do anything. Just made it harder to play games.
your ass
The
still
Power Glove
wanted
made
it.
it into
But
a lot of
dude,
movies, though.
oh yeah, it was in Nightmare on Elm Street. Was it Freddy's Dead?
It was also in Player One, I believe.
Oh
Yep.
yeah,
Ready Player One.
And don't.
Oh,
But
yeah.
like yeah,
say what you will.
I wanted the hell out of that Power Glove. I never had one, but dude, I fucking wanted one. Just like
David,
the
did y'all?
Super Scope for the Super Nintendo. I wanted that super. Well, I had the Super Scope, but like it was pretty useless. But dude, I wanted that Super Scope so bad. It was so cool.
David, did you get any of those peripherals down there? The Power Glove or the Super? You didn't get. Oh my god! Oh my god! Australia is so missed out on the Power Glove phenomena.
Dude, barely anyone had the Power Glove, but if you were that one kid that had the Power Glove, you were God.
Dude, I got the Power Glove and it didn't do shit, as you said, right?
No.
Like you couldn't control shit with that Power Glove, right? And you had to put these little sensors on the side of the TV to control that shit. It was the most whack ass peripheral
Now
out
you're
there.
playing with power.
But dude, every time I'd go to lunch or during recess, I'd be the shit on campus because I'd be like, "Yeah, I got the Power Glove. Is it as good as it looks?" Oh yeah, it's great.
Stiff 1980s rubber, just uncomfortable as hell. Because the plastics and rubbers back then were absolute garbage.
We just made sure to neglect the fact that we couldn't do shit with it. It was nice to put on, but then if you really wanted to play a game for real, you had to take the shit off and play with your gamepad.
Yeah, another game I played the hell out of on my NES was freaking Paperboy. I played a lot of Paperboy.
Oh yeah, Paperboy was classic. Oh yeah, yeah.
Toe Jam and Earl was a Genesis.
Toe Jam and Earl was Genesis. Yeah, Toe Jam and Earl was Genesis. What about anything from the Super NES area that sort of like?
Oh, dude, freaking Star Fox, which blew my mind when I saw that. I was like, "Yo!"
Mm-hmm.
You look at it now and it's like, what the hell is this pixelated shit? But Star Fox blew my mind at the time. The way that the camera was panning around the ships in 3D space as they're like launching out of the tube. And then the whole first level with the Corneria music, freaking classic, dude. Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo, freaking dude, the masterpiece status. Dude, Super Mario World, which in my opinion is still to this day the greatest platformer ever freaking made.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had the Super Mario All-Stars that had all the games in it. Like Super Nintendo was just a freaking dope ass system, man.
I remember All-Stars. I was like on pins and needles for All-Stars. I was like, I saw it because with All-Stars, not only did you get up-res, so you got the original Super Mario and Super Mario Brothers 3 graphics, right? Or Super Mario World graphics. Plus, you got the Lost Levels, which was the original Super Mario Brothers 2 in Japan, which was really just the harder levels, right? And dude, I was like, yeah, I can't be that hard. I couldn't pass the first fucking level. Like that shit was hard, you know? So yeah, I mean, it was back in the day they were hitting on all cylinders. And
and then Mario Kart debuted on the Super Nintendo, and that thing was a monster when it came out. Like my whole family played that. I had freaking grown aunts and uncles that never played video games ever that were getting down for some Mario Kart, 4v4 action.
You were going to say
I was just going to say the theme across everything we've said so far, and I'm interested to hear what Callie's got for his, but they're fun and quick to get into. The gameplay mechanics are simple, and the gameplay loop is highly addictive. But they all made us use our imagination, and that's where I think a lot of the magic came from in our memories of these games. Because all of us will have played these. I know we all have, but we'll have played them with that core piece there. But our imaginations will have deviated them slightly. Like you play Zelda. And the voices are different in everyone's mind, and the meaning behind the words and how they, same with Mario Kart. Everyone just has a blast playing that because how often it's silly, but it's fun and it's quick, and the loop that is easy to pick up. And if you fall behind, it doesn't matter because it'll catch you back up. And then because the idea of the game is to be shooting everyone, so just. Yeah, the fun of it, just so much fun, these games.
And then speaking of Zelda, the Link to the Past was on the Super Nintendo, which, again, for me, is probably one of the best Zelda games, if not the best Zelda game ever made. Super Nintendo was just an incredible system.
Well, you mentioned Zelda and the Link to the Past. I remember when Zelda came out, it was a phenomenal success. And back in the day, remember when they used to package the cartridge? It used to come in a black sleeve. Plus, they used to give you the owner's manual, which I still miss because I love the artwork in those things.
I wish we got owner's manuals still. I read them for no reason.
Dude, the first sentence, and every time you open the owner's manual, the first sentence was, we from Nintendo want to thank you for buying this game. They thanked you for buying the game. It was just it was just a little thing. It was like I didn't buy it, but I remember with Super Mario 2. So I would catch the bus, the actual city bus from the school that I was at to my house, or right in front of my house. Well, where it would leave me, I'd have to trek like maybe 2 or 3 miles to my house. But while was going home, I would pass by Toys R Us. And I remember with Super Mario 2, they announced the game and it was coming out, etc. And every day when that game launched, after that game launched, every day I would go to Toys R Us and I would ask them, do you have a copy of Super Mario Brothers 2? And, you know, I'd be this little chubby kid with his backpack on coming in and sir, do you have a copy of Super Mario Brothers 2? And of course they would always tell me no, because that thing would sell out like immediately once they opened the box, right? Half of the cartridges were probably taken by the employees, you know? So, you know, one day I came in and I was doing it. I knew I was expecting him to say no anyway. So I came in and it's like, sir, do y'all have a copy of Super Mario Brothers 2? And he looked at me, he said, you've been coming here every day for that game. I said, yes, sir, I have. He's like, I saved you a copy. You go home right now and get your money. I kid you not. I ran as fast as my fat ass could get home. My grandmother was at home, God rest her soul. I'm like, Grandma, you got to give me $60. I got to go. She's like, what do you need it for? I said, don't ask questions. Just give me $60. So I got her money and I ran to the Toys R Us back. And in the meantime, she called my dad to think I'm in trouble of some kind, needing $60. So, and I came home and she's like, what did you need the $60 for? I was like, this video game. She's like, you freaking scared me. I thought you were in trouble. I'm like, no. And I remember that game. I remember that. It's these little things, right? These little things that I think I don't know. It's something that's missing in today's gaming. Like everything is just sort of readily available and nothing is just sort of like got after. Nothing. There's like, you know, there's no quest to get anything. It's just there, you know? So I don't know. Maybe it's just the work we had to do because we couldn't afford the games at the time and we had to either wait till either Christmas.
Everything was special back then. Like you were saying, everything was readily available. You get everything instantaneously. And especially now as adults where we all can just buy whatever we want. As kids,
right.
We only got stuff when we got stuff. So when we got stuff, it was special.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
The waiting and the appreciation of the scarcity of being able to get it. 'Cause most of us would have only ever got 1 or 2 new games a year if we were lucky.
Yeah.
And
usually
we had
birthday
to be
and Christmas, right?
And if you got one that was rubbish, you lucked out. You lucked out really badly.
You were SOL.
And then the other thing is those Nintendo composers like Koji Kondo and the rest of them, dude, they cooked for generations. Damn near every game they touched have iconic music to this day. Everything.
And do it with an 8-bit sound.
It was basically MIDI. Basically, all it was were MIDI tracks, weren't they? They were just repurposed MIDI tracks, were they not?
Oh, I remember reading the guy that did the Final Fantasy VII music, and he was chatting with
Ubutsu.
Yeah, he was chatting with a counterpart, a colleague, counterpart, whatever you want to call it, who worked over at Nintendo, who did the music for one of the early
Koji
games.
Kondo?
I think so.
Koji Kondo did the famous music for Super Mario Brothers and for Zelda.
So Super Mario 2 and 3.
Yeah.
So the one that is Super Mario 3. And they were talking about how all they ever wanted was to just drag these massive orchestras in and record all this music, and they'd have to whittle it all down to these little MIDI tracks because they only had 6 channels or 4 channels or whatever it was. But think about the music that was in those games and how complex and amazing it was. And we heard it. Half of them were just these digital tones that made no sense to anyone. And we're lucky to a degree because the same people have been able to recreate some of that music with a massive orchestra and do the whole thing. And the original stuff still stacks up.
Yeah,
you know,
Koji Kondo is like the John Williams of video games, man, with the stuff he was making. But yeah, with the limitations.
John Williams and Hans Zimmer look like bloody amateurs. Some of those guys.
Yeah, but like imagine them trying to score. Imagine them trying to score films with only 6 instruments.
Yeah.
Well, let me go to Callie first because I've not had a chance for him to get his bars off. Callie, you are the youngest on this panel, so obviously I don't think you could probably relate to some of our experiences. But what would you say is your fondest Nintendo memory when it comes to both A, console, and B, game?
Honestly, that's kind of a bit hard for me because like I didn't grow up with that many games for Nintendo. All I really grew up with was what I could play with my cousins. Mm-hmm. And really what that came down to was like mostly the multiplayer stuff that they made, which was like your Mario Karts, your Smash Brothers, and or Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. Like stuff like that is what like really what I enjoyed. And I just had a lot of fun with. I could just remember all the memories me and my cousins would have, just like yelling at each other, just trying to beat each other.
What was your first Nintendo console?
It was the Wii. It was the
Wii. Oh, okay, wow. So
technically it was the Game Boy, but I didn't really. But that's kind of a technicality because the only reason I got that was because my grandma found that out of a dumpster. It was a Game Boy Advance SP, so I only had one game with it, so I don't really count that. But the Wii was really my first one because that's the one my parents got me. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, I was one of those kids that got lucked out and got some shitty games with some good games, but I got more shitty games than I did. But the games that what were you about to say?
I was just going to ask, did you ever try the old eBay buy the box of random stuff games?
I was a kid, so I didn't have any money. So I really depended on my parents for what they gave me, really. So if it was good, it was good. If it was bad, you
were stuck with it either way, whether you liked it or not.
Yeah.
We're talking about music. Do y'all remember that when the Super NES launched, it launched with a game that was not actually Nintendo's game. It was Square Enix's game. I think it was back in the day Square's ActRaiser. Like you go from the music of the NES to the music of ActRaiser, like mind blown. Like you heard those instruments playing with ActRaiser. Like my God, my brain was like next level. Like wow, I didn't even know this was even capable on a console. So yeah, I mean those were the things.
But the games were also so unique and different back then. Like, do you guys remember Uniracer, the racing game where you were just a unicycle?
Yeah,
it was good, but it's like we don't get that much creativity. Everything is like, okay, here's the genre. It's all kind of here's all the boxes you have to check to make this game, and then just make your variation of this game. Back then, dude, everything was so different and creative and weird and wacky. Like nothing was the same.
Well, this also one of the things that sort of motivated me to do this topic and this podcast was I was playing Plucky Squire last night, and I think Super, you had finished it, and this is not a discussion on Plucky Squire, but there was something pure about Plucky Squire. It's a very simple game, but exudes that old school Nintendo charm, in my opinion. Exudes that old school Nintendo charm, and it is how to describe it. It sort of made me think about what was the beauty of Nintendo. And I think back in the day, and this is also going to bring up my next point, Nintendo, more than any of the other platform holders, I believe, really does a lot when it comes to making sure that their games demonstrate their hardware's capability to the best possible light. I mean, if you look at, for example, with the NES, they literally eked out everything they could get out of the NES. And same thing with the Super Nintendo. They literally eked out everything they could get from that Super Nintendo before they moved on to the next generation. So, like, more than even me pivoting, like, even when we go from generation to generation for PlayStation or Xbox, I believe that when Nintendo transitions to the next generation, it's always a bigger thing in my brain than it is when PlayStation moves on or Xbox moves on. Because with Xbox and PlayStation, I feel like I'm getting a variation of the same game. Does that make sense? Like, yeah, it's a little bit prettier, it's a little bit sharper, it might be running a little bit better resolution, but it's not anything that, like, within an appreciable extent couldn't have been done in a prior console. Whereas if you look at, for example, you go from NES to SNES, you got all these graphical updates, etc. Then you went from SNES to N64, which had your 3D stuff going around. Then N64 to GameCube with all of the controller changes and everything like that. Then GameCube to the Wii with motion graphics, etc. like that. So Wii to Switch, where you now you could carry around your AAA games. So I mean, like, there's just something about when Nintendo moves to their next hardware. I'm not saying that that's I'm not going to be as arrogant as to say that's when the new next generation begins. It's not that. It's not that. But there's just something about when a new Nintendo console comes out. Go ahead.
Their controllers, you just touched on then. Have all their consoles have had different controllers.
Yeah. And
it's only this current one. The PlayStation's always had the same controller layout. Xbox has always had the same controller layout. What Nintendo's done different every time. So it'll be interesting to see what they pop up with in the next one. I imagine it will be something similar to what we're all sort of used to, because it all sort of gravitates to one. This is the best version of, you refine stuff down to get to the best version at some point. But there's got to be some gimmicky stuff. They're good at doing that. And getting some weird wonderful stuff out there.
I like how he skipped over Nintendo's failure console.
Well, I mean, we're going to get to the negatives first. We're just right now talking about just the positives right now. Then we're going to get to the negatives. Like, I'm going to talk about, there's stumbles, if you will. Wii U, of course, is being just one of them. But no, but like but that's what I'm saying. Like, because they do a little bit of something extra, I feel that, it means more to me as a gamer when I'm buying the next iteration or the next generation of Nintendo console. There's this anticipatory feeling that I have, right? Like, for example, this new Switch that's coming out, and true enough, is probably just an iteration, and that's fine because that's all I really want. But I'm looking forward to seeing, like, this. If rumors are to be believed, this console is going to be at least 10 times as strong or 10 times more powerful than the Switch. Well, I want to see what the next Mario looks like with 10 times more power, or the next Star Fox, or the next and I know they're going to do that because I know that's what Nintendo does. Nintendo takes their hardware and they say, okay, what can we do to maximize on this hardware?
Honestly, when it comes to a lot of those IPs, I don't think the power is really going to make that much of a difference, especially if you look at the art style. Like, look at the Super Mario Wonderland. Like, if you made that 4K, like, it would just look like it does, but 4K. And they're not trying to do anything that's hyper realistic or anywhere close to it. It's still going to be, cartoonish and fun. So I don't think they'll look any different on the more powerful hardware, honestly.
I think the benefit will come from the speed in the gameplay. And the interaction in the gameplay. If they can get more stuff on the screen, great. And I agree with what Super's saying. I don't think the art style is conducive to you've got to have it crispy and super realistic and change all that stuff. But if the edges are cleaner and you can put more, few more enemies on the screen, or you can get a bit more speed into the gameplay, then I think that's probably where they're going to get the biggest benefit from, because it's certainly not, if they're talking about it being somewhere between a PS4 Pro performance, but it's got DLSS and a few other things, the upscaling will take care of itself, and the graphical output will be limited to whatever the screen is that you're playing it on, be it on the screen itself or whether it's tethered or docked into a TV. But I think it's the biggest benefit I hope that they lean on is the ability to just put either more stuff on the screen, or have more speed or fun in the gameplay, from the controlling aspect.
It'll be better for like games like your Tears of the Kingdom, stuff like that, where there's large, kind of more expansive worlds where they can put more detail on the worlds and have less pop in things like that.
I was actually going to chime in on that and say that would actually help out, because I think everyone saw the disaster that was the last Pokemon game, or how bad it looked, and the pop in that really didn't help the game either. I think the age is starting to show on the current stuff, on the current hardware.
Long live Pal World.
Well, let's go, since we're already bringing up some of their negatives. what would you say as a panel? I'm gonna open this up to everybody in the panel. What would you say was one of Nintendo's biggest negatives? I'll start. I think one of Nintendo's biggest negatives is, in my opinion, their. I want to say their. It's not really a negative per se, but like it's more like, okay, the way they approach their games is they go, okay, this is a game and this is the gameplay we want to do in this game, and then they build the story around the gameplay. But that's all nice and well, but there are certain, and that's fine for Mario, like go beat Bowser or whatever. But you know, there are certain games that sort of are conducive towards a story-driven thing. They went out of their way to build a story or a lore for The Legend of Zelda with Hyrule Historia, just to negate it and released. They basically said Breath of the Wild is its own thing. It's not even a part of the time spectrum, if you will. So to me, I think Nintendo sometimes errs too much on the side of gameplay and less on the side of story. Now, that's just what I would say is one of their biggest negatives, in my opinion, that sometimes they do need to sometimes focus on story, as opposed to just strictly looking on gameplay. But let me just open it up for everybody else. Like, what do y'all think would be like Nintendo's, I don't want to say Achilles heel, or just what do y'all feel that Nintendo really falls short doing a lot of times?
I think they fall short. No, go ahead, Callie. I've been talking a lot.
I think they fall short of graphical power, to be honest. Like a lot of the games.
But is that a negative though for them? Because like
I think so. I think so when it comes to third party. I mean, I know their first party is great. It's always going to be great because it's Nintendo. Their games are always going to be quality. But when it comes to third party, I think it kind of is more like you're not going to see like big games like go on there right away because like that's where they lack the power. Like you're not going to see the next big GTA on there. So, I mean, that's kind of a dock for me, at least. I mean, that's what hurt them. That's what hurt them in the Wii era because like no third parties would port on them because we couldn't really handle it. They had to make specific Wii ports.
Well, they had a lot of third party, but it was all shovelware back in the day.
Yeah. Well, I meant like big third party games, like from your EAs or like your Activisions.
Well, one of the other reasons that they didn't port it to the Wii was not only because of the graphical power, but also because a lot of people didn't want to program for that motion controller shit, you know? So yeah, that was also another thing. Like, okay, well, if we're gonna bring COD to the Wii, then we're going to have to figure out how to get COD up and running with motion controls, which I think COD sort of lends itself well because it's a first-person shooter, but still, it's like...
Yeah, but not with the Wii controls. They weren't precise enough to really lend themselves to something like Call of Duty, I don't think.
Yeah, that's true.
But I have two things. One of them is like what Callie said, the lack of power, because... they're really happy to kind of just lean into the cartoonish graphics, childish graphics, but like I prefer like the last Zelda that I actually liked the way it looked was Twilight Princess. I really like the art style of Twilight Princess, and I'm dying for the day that we get a Zelda that feels like a current day generation fantasy game. Like that's the Zelda game I dream of, and I don't know that we'll ever get it if they.
So you're looking for like a hyper-realistic Zelda?
It doesn't have to be hyper realistic, just more realistic than it is now. Like I said, the Twilight Princess art style, if they stayed with that but just up-resed it, dude, I think that would be amazing. Or if they want to take it a little further, great. But I just want something that feels a little more, I guess, real and less like a cartoon. But when it comes to Zelda specifically, the other stuff I don't really mind as much.
See, that's my pushback against you. I don't like the Twilight Princess art style. I actually
I love it.
I like the Skyward Sword and the Breath of the Wild art style because it reminds me of like a Princess Mononoke or something of that nature. You know, something more anime driven. You know, than the traditional stuff like that.
If you like the anime driven, I think Astral Chain's art style lends itself pretty well to that. That and the Xenoblade games.
Yeah, but like. You know, Zelda has never been like hyper realistic to me. I mean, I guess I wouldn't mind seeing a Gleedon.
No, you're right. It never has. But then once we got to Twilight Princess, and I saw, oh shit, Link can look like that. Like instead of what he looked like in Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time, like Link can look like this. You know, Hyrule can look like this. Okay, awesome. And then right after that, they did what? What was the one that was like super cartoonish?
Oh, that was the Wind Waker.
And then I was like, what the fuck is this? I'm like,
You like
backwards,
I enjoy
Nintendo.
it.
Oh,
When they
hell no.
When they showed
No.
Link for the first time after the Wind Waker, I was like, there was that. Okay, so when they presented it in E3, I remember like we were all expecting a hyper-realistic Zelda akin to what they were showing in the graphics, right? Like when they showed the
When it was fighting the tarantula.
Right. We were expecting
Yeah.
that level of graphical fidelity, and we got this cartoon art style, and I'm like, it took me aback, and I was quiet for a minute when I first saw it, the reveal, but then I looked at it again and the replay, and I'm like, you know what? This ain't bad. I like this. So yeah, I mean, to me, I enjoy it.
I didn't dig it, but I mean, different strokes for different folks. Obviously, everyone's going to have their art styles they prefer that they like. Me personally, my dream Zelda game is one that gets a little more closer to what Twilight Princess was. The other thing that annoys me about Nintendo is, listen, I'm half Italian. Dude, I'm tired of seeing this little Italian plumber that Nintendo just puts a dress on and some lipstick, says, "Get out there, bitch, and make us some money." Right? It's Mario. Everything. It's Mario Kart, Mario Party, Mario this, so spin off here, a Luigi game, the game with the Peach, and it's like, all right, dude, great, but dude, where is Kid Icarus? Where is Donkey Kong? Where is Star Fox? Where are these other IP you have? It seems like they are more than happy to just whore Mario out to every possible genre that exists, and then to have Zelda games as well, and then like everything else is just kind of like, eh.
Yeah,
but like I wish they would bring back some of these great IP.
Yeah, so I've got to head off in a minute, but if I can just jump in.
Go ahead.
And I know KY's got to go as well. Nintendo, and sorry to divert for a second, but Nintendo make all their money off their first party, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that annoys me the most about what they do is they take forever to get their new games out. Every time they go to make a new game that doesn't have Pokemon written on the front of it. So it would be, and they've got a game in every genre. That just, like Super just said, Mario can do side-scrolling or third-world platforming. Zelda covers your JRPG. Star Fox covers your aerial fighter sim stuff. They've got a game that covers all the major genres, including the fun stuff where they mash them up and do, Super Smash Bros. For the fighting community. That thing's gonna live forever until they make the next one. Mm-hmm. It's same with Mario Kart and Mario Party and those sort of things. They've got everything covered, but they take forever to get a new game out if it's a first party. And it drives me nuts that it takes them so long to produce something that is, you said before, not that big a difference to the last one that they kicked out. So they let them hang out there for way too long and then take forever to get the next one going. But I suppose it's a odd thing for it to be sitting here complaining about when you look at, as you said before, what Xbox and PlayStation do, which is we get the same, Ubisoft and EA and all that, we get the next version of the same game with a different skin and maybe one different button on change in the control setup.
Slap another number on the box.
Right.
Yeah, as you said, put the lipstick on it, kick it out there and tell it to make us some more money doing the same thing on the mileage. But if they just, it frustrates me that they have the ability to push a bit harder and make a bit more initiative out of it on their broader IP package, that they don't do it. And it's very frustrating because the amount of rubbish games that show up on a Switch at the moment that are just garbage and shouldn't even be there, it's like, well, why would you bother? You look at the top 20 selling games on Nintendo at the moment, and they're all first party, except for when Xenoblade kicks something out, or except for when Pokemon shows up, or except for when one of those odd ones pops out. If you got them there, lean on them. I mean, for crying out loud, where the hell did Kirby come from? That thing that was never going to be a major player until they decided to put some money in behind it back in the day. Same thing with Yoshi. It showed up in a Mario game, and all of a sudden he's got his own game. It's these little weird little characters out of the bigger series, and then they've just kicked them out and said, well, we want to make money and we'll broaden it out. The last game that came out, Peach Princess, was it Peach?
Yeah, the Showtime.
Daisy, whoever it was. Yeah. That thing was. That she had a game 20 years ago, and then all of a sudden they've gone, oh, we got to do something, let's just wheel this thing out. Like, great, but we don't care. We want, where's Star Fox?
Mm-hmm.
Where's those guys?
Where's Kid Icarus?
Where's Icarus? Come on.
You can do Country, bro.
Exactly.
When's the next? Give us a Donkey Kong game, for crying out loud. That's not just
Mario
a brawler.
sells.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my gripe is that they lean on the man with the mustache too much.
Yep.
Can you give us 15 more minutes, because we're gonna talk after this topic. We're gonna move into like what we want from the Switch 2, and then probably call it a night. So if
I
possible.
wish I could, but I gotta go.
Okay, well, tell us before you leave,
Sorry.
what would you like to see as a gamer that Nintendo do with their next console?
Two things: don't screw us on the back compatibility.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's clearly something that's just going to have to exist. Well, with digital games, there must be backwards compatibility. And the second thing is, give us something that's not reaching for the stars in a really crazy way. Give us something that we can get those advancements in the gameplay ability without sacrificing the magic that comes from the games. Because I genuinely feel that PlayStation and Xbox have stepped way too far in that attempt to get hyper-realism and all this other graphical fidelity stuff. They focus way too much on that in their game development, and we lose too much magic.
Yeah,
We
I
lose
agree.
way too much magic out of those games.
Because as you
and
know
that's-
as well as I, the money can only go to a certain amount of places, right? You can't put it
That's right.
everywhere, right? So, and they're putting it
That's
all
right.
in the graphics and
Yep.
with
And
diminishing
look
returns.
at how well Astrobot did. Yes, that thing's graphically amazing, but it was fun gameplay. And look at Plucky Squire again, something different. There's magic involved in that. Some of the best games of the year contenders this year and back end of last year aren't these massive hyper-realistic photorealism games that have got no substance, no story, and no gameplay loop to them. They're these quirky little offbeat things that just look like fun. They're amazing, but to play them is just a dream, and they're fun. And
Like
that's what
Astro
I
Button
want out of
and
next
Plucky Squire feel like there are games just made to be good games, whereas a lot of these other games we play, it feels like there were games made to make money, and then everything else came secondary to that. And Plucky Squire and Astrobot feel like they're the inverse.
Yeah, it feels like these games feel like they want you to have fun first, and then if they make money afterwards, that's great. Whereas the other games that we play, it seems like, as you said, they're a cash grab, and the fact that you enjoy them, that's a beneficial side effect, but that not the intended goal per se, you know?
Just give us something fun. Just make the next iteration of whatever it is. Just for the love of all that is holy, do not make it that stupidly expensive to put things on it that we as the consumer are going to pay through the nose for it and then thus be very picky about it and not enjoy it so much, or that the developers chase this, we've got to be up here with all the visuals and down here with the gameplay. I don't want that. Just please do not give them that. They've got a PlayStation that'll do that. They've got a PCs that can do that. Just stay away from that end of it. Keep us here in we love playing games. Just please
at the end of the day, we're gamers,
don't move
right?
away from that.
Yeah, there's only so much. Yeah, if we wanted to see pretty pictures, we can watch a movie for that. We're gamers, so for us, gameplay is paramount. So more than anything.
And give me a new version of Mario Kart, please, because 8 versions isn't enough. Give me a new one.
What the heck would they even do with a new one? That's my question. They sort of threw everything in the kitchen sink for it, right?
Give us some new track settings. Give us a few different characters. It'd be fun if you had a Mario Kart and a Smash Brothers crossover. You could use all your Smash Brothers characters to run in Mario Kart. It'd be real fun. But anyway, I got to go. Apologies. Have a good time. Thanks for having me on. And hit me up about next week, Wize.
Yes, sir. All right, KY, what do you? I'm gonna step out for a second, but tell us what was your biggest negative for Nintendo.
All right, go take a vacation. I got this, bro.
Okay, go ahead.
He's gonna hold it down.
So, the biggest Achilles heel that Nintendo has, they haven't always had it because they used to sell consoles by just third-party games that you could only find on their console. It's got to be astronomical, but I don't know the exact number. But I know Resident Evil 4 sold a ton of GameCubes because that was the only place you could play it, and it was a phenomenal game. In my opinion, before these remakes started coming out, it was the best Resident Evil game, hands down. And they got they didn't do that with the Wii. They haven't done that since we're not with like a main line developer like Capcom.
I guess I just looked it up. I guess Resident Evil 4 on GameCube only sold 1.6 million. That seems really low, though. Yeah, that's what it says. The internet could be lying. But yeah. Adjusted for inflation. What?
Yeah, I mean, for the Capcom amount of money that they earned back then.
We know we're not talking about money. We're talking about copies sold.
No, but still, like for how much it sold, still, it should have made a profit back then.
No, he was saying about how many GameCubes it would have sold.
Game. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there. I just
when they added the backwards compatibility downloads and stuff to the Wii, the very first game that I picked up digitally on the Wii was when they put the GameCube version of Resident Evil 4 on there, because I had played it and beat it and had the rocket launcher and all the stuff that you got for beating it multiple times, different ways. I had it all, and I had to get it all again because it was, to this day, is my favorite Resident Evil game.
Yeah.
But what console was that on?
GameCube.
GameCube.
Well, and Wii technically.
Actually, my favorite GameCube game was Eternal Darkness. To this day, that game is still a trip to play. I remember I never played a game like that. Have any of y'all played Eternal Darkness?
Mm-mm.
No, nope. I skipped out on the GameCube and the Wii just because none of the games I was seeing were really interesting me. So I skipped those two generations of Nintendo.
Okay, well, Eternal Darkness played off of that whole fourth wall breaking type situation that was famously started with Metal Gear Solid, with Psycho Mantis, with how he read the your memory card and
I see you're playing on a PlayStation 2.
Right. Or you like Castlevania or something like that. But with Eternal Darkness, it was cool because like all of a sudden you would go into like you would go into like that static snow stuff. For no reason. You think that your console broke or something like that, or your controller would stop working, and it wasn't because there was anything wrong with the game. That was sort of intentionally done, and it was a freaking trip. It was back in the day. I mean, like, you have to understand that was never done before in a game platform where you would break the fourth wall, and to have a game that would do it so masterfully, it was just very impressive for the time.
Wize?
Yes.
I have to say, F you. What? You're gonna have this playing in my head all day tomorrow at work.
Let's put it this way, right? There's a whole lot of other earworms that are probably even worse for you than this one. If this is the only earworm you have, I think you're doing pretty good, So, but let me also go to this, okay? What do y'all feel as gamers? Not what they should do financially. This is not about a business analysis of what Nintendo should be doing. This is, okay, for me as a gamer, this is what I would like to see in the next console, whatever they call it. I'll go first. To be honest with you, as much as I say I like innovation that Nintendo does on their consoles and controllers, I do wish they do a little bit of something. That's the beauty of Nintendo. Like, you always look for that next thing that they're going to be doing differently with their console that nobody else is doing, and then later on somebody's going to copy anyways. So I remember, like, there was rumors in the back in the day where they might be making the shoulder buttons like a scrollable shoulder button. I don't know what the gimmick is going to be, but I hope they do put a gimmick in there because but I don't want them to rely on that gimmick as much as make it something different. I want to be pleasantly amused. Show me something that I've never thought of before, because Nintendo's good with that. They always throw in things that you've never thought of before, and then you're like, oh yeah, I could see myself using this for the rest of my gaming career. Like when they implemented the thumbstick for the N64, and I was like, well, okay, that's pretty cool. And of course, then PlayStation and then Xbox followed and everything like that. So that's what I'm looking for. To this day, also the GameCube layout for their button placement, I think.
Hate that controller.
You may hate it, but I like it. I like having that big button being the main button being slightly bigger than the other ones. I remember with the Super Nintendo back in the day. Remember when the Super Famicom was announced and those buttons were multicolored? And before they ported that console to America, they changed the outside skin to a purple and gray one. And then if you looked at the buttons, right? The buttons, there was 2 of them that were concave and 2 of them that were convex, and that's how you were able.
Wasn't it 3? Wasn't it 6 buttons on the SNES controller?
No, you're thinking about I think the Saturn or something like that, where they had 6 buttons. SNES had 4.
The Genesis had a 6 button. The Genesis launched with a 3 button, but because of Mortal Kombat 2 and the new Street Fighter, they released a 6 button that added XYZ above the ABC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but like I remember with the Super Nintendo, like to this day, nobody's done that. Like you got 4 buttons, you got 4 face buttons to this day, and all 4 face buttons feel the same. Why can't they make 2 of them concave and 2 of them convex so that you don't have to even look at them? Sometimes you can just feel them and know which orientation you're in,
Do we have that problem in 2024? Like I never have a problem with not knowing what button my fingers are on.
Yeah, it's not that. It's just that they feel better. I don't know. It's just a little, it might be psychological. It probably is. And it's just they feel better to me, And I guess that's what I want to see. I want to see a little bit of something different. I don't want to feel, somewhere somebody said one time that we are a peak console. That means like everything that sort of that can come out on a controller has come out on a controller. And everything that's been done on a console has already been done on a console. So that my question is, I don't think that's the case. I don't think we're at peak, and I'm waiting for somebody like Nintendo to say, you know what, this is something that is different, and then use games that use it. And I
fear that you're not going to really see that with this next Switch, though. I fear it's really going to be very iterative, and it's just going to be a better version of what the current Switch is. Especially if they want to get support from third-party developers, if they did something a little more creative or like out of left field, it would hamper the ability for a lot of these third-party devs to be able to port their games to that console. I think that's something that Nintendo is not trying to do. I think that was the whole reason why they're trying to make this new Switch, right, is to get some of these third-party games on there. And we've seen a lot of these third-party games start to get ported to the existing Switch. It's just not really powerful enough to run them, and I don't think they're trying to lose that going forward.
But do you think that if all they do is just overhaul the graphical fidelity, that would be good enough for this console? And I don't think you see, the thing is this. I think
it'll be good enough for the casuals, but I think you're kind of losing a bit of the Nintendo DNA if they stop being creative with it.
And see, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm used to PlayStation giving me, for the PlayStation 6, the same thing with the DualSense 2 and more power. Same thing with the Xbox, whatever they want to call it. Next controller will be the same thing, with maybe a little bit more power, maybe here. But when I look at a Nintendo console, I'm looking for them to surprise me somehow. Like, do something I'm not seeing. Now, will everything resonate? Like, for example, famously, I hated the Wii and Wii U era of Nintendo. I hated it because I was not into motion controls,
Yeah.
But like,
it was probably a lot of casuals though, but they didn't just stick to buying games though. That was the double-edged sword of that approach.
Well, I mean, I was down day one with 4-button layout with SNES. I was down day one with a thumbstick for the Super Nintendo. I mean, for the N64. I was down day one with that alternate button placement for the GameCube. When it came to the Wii and Wii U, I didn't really care for it. Now with the Switch, when you said, okay, I can take that stuff anywhere, whether it's home, plug it into my TV or take it with me on the go, I'm down day one. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something.
That wasn't even the craziest thing. If you think about it, really the craziest thing is the fact that you could take the Joy-Cons off and each one becomes its own controller. Like that's freaking crazy. And then you can play 2-player games.
Yeah.
Each of you just holding one Joy-Con.
That are kind of outdated though, compared to like the newer controllers, like the PS5 controller. I think that's something that they can improve on.
Yeah. It's going to have to get bigger if they're going to really improve on the haptic feedback. They're going to have to make it bigger because that's why you have the limitations. It's just the size.
Well, they're going to make it bigger because from what we've seen, and I know these are just rumors, It was an 8-inch screen, and that size of that, somebody did basically took that design and made a 3D replica of it, and just to
Right,
see
but
size.
the haptic is not going to come from the hardware inside the screen portion of the console, though. It's going to come from the Joy-Con portions.
Yeah, but if the screen is bigger, the Joy-Con that attaches to the screen would be bigger by default too. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, slightly. You're not looking at a massive increase because the 8-inch, growing 8 inches, it's on a diagonal. It's not up or down. So it's really not that much in the grand scheme of things.
Well, also one thing I do like about it is I think gaming is best done when there's a limitation, because you have to be more creative. Like if you look at these independent indie developers, they really are hamstrung by the amount of money that they can invest in the game. If you look at Nintendo year in and year out, throughout the years, they've always been programming, except for a couple of generations, on an underpowered console. And they're like, okay, well, we can't do this maybe, but what can we do with what we got? And I think when you bring limitations to anything, it forces you to be more creative with your resources, if that makes sense. And I don't want Nintendo to be the most powerful console. I don't think they ever will be, because I think Nintendo works best with a constraint on it.
They're just never going to try to be, because they've seen that they don't have to run that race. They unnecessary. Like Xbox and PlayStation can run that race. They're in their own lane doing their own thing. There's no need for them to push for insane graphics. People clearly don't give a shit. So, they've got what, like 130 million Switches sold, something like that. 140 million. So.
Well, what about you, Callie and KY? What do y'all want to see in the next console as gamers?
I just want to see them like do something unique. I want them to just keep that DNA that they've always had and just do something even if it's a bit gimmicky. I want them to do something unique with the new Switch, but just don't make it too gimmicky where a lot of games have to depend on using it. Like the Wii had to depend on the motion controls. I think that's the best route for them. But as for what that could be, I don't know really. That's really up to Nintendo. But I just want them to do something new with the Switch.
Okay. What about you, KY? What do you want to see as a gamer from Nintendo?
I want so many issues with Nintendo since. Oh shoot! I guess we can go back to the GameCube era, because I think that's really where it started to taper off, when the Wii forward. It's just like, if you look at all these games out here, all the games in the landscape of gaming, they're on almost every platform, unless they have exclusive third-party deals with that with a certain platform. We have seen so many games not get Nintendo versions because of Nintendo's hardware capabilities. Now, I understand people on Nintendo, if they're Nintendo diehards, yes, I mean, they're there obviously for the first party content. But let's say at work, they're like, what have you been doing? Or what did you do last night? Oh, I played Call of Duty. Oh, I don't get that. Or what did you do? Oh, dude, I'm playing this really cool RPG called Dragon's Dogma 2. Oh, I don't have that. I can't get that. Their hardware is limiting the experiences that their hardware owners can have. I don't care if they change. I don't want to see innovation. I mean, I'm through with innovation. Those were gimmicks, and yes, it sold things, but they didn't live past their time. A console that's going to be able to play everything, it's going to stand out longer. I want to see a Switch with a better screen, more hardware, better hardware, so that when you put it in its dock and you put the image on your television, it doesn't turn into a potato. The Switch is best played in handheld mode. When you try to put it on a 4K screen, it falls apart. It struggles. So yeah, I want to see more hardware. I want to see Nintendo gamers get the experiences that all other gamers have outside of third-party deals with certain platforms.
Okay.
Boom.
Well, let me say this. This is also something I want to see. Being a Nintendo fan is an expensive proposition. Okay, it's always been an expensive proposition. Mario as a mascot has trumped even Mickey Mouse, and Disney has sort of sold or created that Mickey Mouse icon to be almost a luxury logo, if you will. And I think Nintendo, because of all of this, being a Nintendo fan or a Mario fan is very expensive, because if you buy, like I do, a lot of that stuff, like for example, if there's a new Zelda mug, I'll buy it. If there's a t-shirt out or a hoodie out, I will always buy it. When I went to New York last year, I racked up at the Nintendo store. I pretty much picked up every t-shirt and hoodie they had there. So this console is not going to be cheap. It's going to be $400, which, I mean, you could say is cheaper than some of the other consoles. But I think it's high time Nintendo embrace that and stop making a console that looks like a toy and make it look like something that is more high-tech or more approaching more of that more high-end look. Because that's what it is. I mean, if you look
Wouldn't you be competing with the other handheld markets out there, like the Steam Deck and all that, if they did go that route?
Yeah, but it's still Nintendo. Like, that's the thing. Like, I don't think that it would look... I mean, I still think that, Nintendo doing it is still a little bit different, because the Steam Deck doesn't have that... You don't have the Steam logo representing some sort of, like, a luxury brand like the Apple logo does, or the Disney, or so, for example, like the Mickey Mouse logo. That is like almost like a luxury logo these days, right? Same thing. Go ahead.
I mean, they kind of do, because like Steam does use their logo for a lot of the different products, like the what's it called? Their Steam VR.
The problem though is that the demographic for Nintendo specifically, it caters to a much younger audience than something like an Xbox or PlayStation does. So, parents going to buy something for their kids for Christmas, they're not going to, get them the luxury item. They're going to go to the Nintendo that's been around forever. That's the toy for their kids.
But they need to.
Let's not forget. I mean, I heard you brought up Steam Deck, ROG Ally. Those are adopters of Nintendo's platform. The Switch was out first. Switch was out before either of those. The Game Boy was out before all of them. The issue is the Steam Deck and the ROG Ally and the Lenovo Go. They're more comparable pieces of equipment. They're more powerful pieces of equipment, which is, again, I want the next console to be a Switch. I really do. I like the handheld market. That's why if Xbox releases a
dedicated handheld,
and had dedicated handheld that also has Windows in the background so that I can launch a Steam launcher on my handheld, dude, I'm there.
And a native Game Pass application.
Because right now we're having to deal with cloud gaming on our mobile phones, and it's still experiencing horrendous limitations. Give me a native handheld where I don't have to play a game on the cloud. I can just store it on my hard drive, on my, and then I'll have to worry about internet connectivity. And unless I'm doing multiplayer, I can still have the same experience. They just need a Switch that's got some ass. Give me a Switch that's got ass.
It's got ass.
Please.
Give it a BBL.
There you go.
What about you, Nova? What do you want to see in the next console, from a gamer's perspective?
I just want to see something that's more powerful. Like you were saying, I want to see something that's a little more powerful, and I want to see these games get a little more flexing done in terms of the graphical capabilities of these games. Like, as a grown man now, like I cater towards more of the realistic graphics and games. Now, not every Nintendo game needs to be that, but I would like them to push the visuals a little bit. Like, I feel like we're on the Switch, but it almost feels like the games we're playing could have been played on the freaking GameCube. Like we haven't really seen that much movement. There's kind of been like this kind of lateral movement with iterative changes along the way because the hardware hasn't really made any large jumps. I don't need anything crazy gimmicky with the controls. I don't care about all that. Like that's why I skipped on the Wii. Like I didn't care about the motion controls. I thought they were gimmicky. I thought the games played like shit. And I felt like, dude, this is a console. Like Nintendo went from being a console for people like me to being a console for grandmas and babies. Because that's all the games were. They're experiences for grandmas and babies. And I was like, I'm out. I'm out for this generation. I'll come back when it makes more sense to me. And the Switch does make more sense to me, but I would still like to see them push a little more and have a little more power on the hardware than they have now. I don't care about the mobility as much as you guys do because I don't really go out all that often. I'm home in my wheelchair, and I play exclusively docked. So I would, in that case, definitely like to see them do a little bit more with pushing the power because even docked, you get like a minuscule boost in power from what you have in portable mode. So I would like to see them do something a little more substantial when it's docked. Maybe the dock is not just a hollow piece of plastic. Maybe the dock itself is the console and you just have the screen portion that pops out to be mobile, so when it's docked, it is more powerful. Something like that. I don't know. I really, it's not so much that I don't want to see them bring back a lot of these old games. That's really what I want. Fuck what the console is. Like, make it more powerful and great. I want to see these old franchises come back. That's what I really want from Nintendo more than anything. More than a more powerful hardware, more than better anything. And just bring back some of these old IP that I miss.
Well, and this is going to be our last thing. I'm just going to go around the panel and ask, but this is based off of what DE said in the chat. By the way, thank you for showing up, D. I said I could go for some Smash Brothers like moveset in Mario open world game, playing like Stellar Blade or Final Fantasy 16. So to pivot on that, I just want to go around and ask everybody, if you were going to launch this game console with a game, what would be your game? I'll go first. For me, Punch Out. I want another Punch Out. I know I probably will never get one. I want another Punch Out, and I want another Kid Icarus in the vein of the old school NES Kid Icarus, not that crap that they'd released on the 3DS or DS or whatever. So that is what I would like it to have a game launch with. But of course, that's pie in the sky dreams. But let me go around. What about you, Super? What would you say? What would be your game that if you would launch it, what would it be? And again, this is from strict, not business oriented. I know we're probably going to launch with a Mario, but if you want the next game to be a Mario, the first game to be a Mario, that's fine.
I don't. I'm done on Mario. I'm tired of seeing that fucking plumber, man. Give him a rest. Let that man have a break. It's been 30, 40 freaking years. Let him have a damn vacation.
No, but he's practically the Mickey Mouse equivalent from Nintendo. They're not going to give him up.
No, I know they're not, but I would just like to see that change.
So what game would you launch it with if you could launch it with anything?
I would want an updated Donkey Kong Country. That's what I would really want.
Cool. What about you, KY?
Say it again. So I was busy typing.
What game would you fuck yourself. What game would you, if you, as a gamer,
put it back up there. Put it back up there.
What game would you like it to launch with?
Goodness. Well, depending on if it gets out in time, GTA 6.
Oh, okay. Wow. Well,
on the Switch too? Jeez.
Well, there is some questionable content on the Switch, so I don't see why they couldn't put GTA 6 on there too.
Oh, no, I'm talking about in being able to play the damn thing.
Yeah, true. We'll see, but I don't know. What about you, Callie?
Honestly, it's a bit of fun. I think maybe a Pokemon game for me, because that's always my jam.
Oh, cool. Pokemon. Well, guys, that is our podcast for tonight. As I said, that this show is supposed to be short. I know we still went a little bit over. It was only supposed to be about 45 minutes, but it went to an hour and 20. Again, this podcast is sporadic. That's why it's called a one night stand, because it's not going to be a regular thing. I will advertise when it does come in, and it's also something. The reason I'm doing all of this is also because I want my future generations, like my kids, my grandkids, whoever, watch this on the back end to know that, you know, their dad or granddad was just a gamer, and why he sort of gravitated towards Nintendo, and why his fellow friends and partners also liked Nintendo, and why Nintendo is looked upon with just the favorable look that it does. And I'm looking forward to the next generation. I will be down day one to buy it because, you know, I can't not have a Nintendo console the first day it launches. I mean, that's just the way it's been since 1985 for me. So yeah. But anyways, that is our show for tonight. Anyways, we will be back next week on Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern with Waste with Wize. Of course, the energy will be totally different. And yeah, just want to thank everybody for showing up. DE, RPG, everybody else in the chat, 108 Dragons. Let's see who else. Yeah, 108 Dragons. Everybody else has showed up. If I did not call your name or did I mention? Oh, Nelson, thank you for showing up as well. So I want to thank Super for coming in. Super, Cali, and KY, thank you for your time tonight. And
that almost sounded like you were going to say supercalifragilisticexpialidocious right there.
Well, do y'all have anything y'all want to say before we head on out about this topic?
No.
What about you? Anything, Cali?
Nope.
What about you, KY? KY is screen froze.
You know, I'm the type of person that I hate parody.
Mm-hmm.
I hate it when games perform so close to one another, and then people use that as I'm better than you. And I hate it when some people get to play a game on one platform, but they don't get to play a game on another platform. Now, this is understood. I understand that the God of Wars are going to be somewhere, the Ratchet and Clanks are going to be somewhere, the Horizons are going to be somewhere, and the Halos, the Forzas, and the Gears are going to be somewhere. I understand that. But third-party games locked to a platform, I hate it. I want everybody to be able to play all the third-party games that they want to play wherever they want to play them. It doesn't matter what kind of motherboard, what kind of CPU, what kind of graphics card I have in my computer. I can play all the games. Why does it change when I have a plastic box that's dedicated to games? So I want Nintendo to up its hardware, get stronger so that they get to play all the games that we get to play on the better consoles. And there you go.
Cool. All right, what about you, Super? Anything else to say before we close on out the show?
If the next console is not called the Super Nintendo Switch, someone better get fucking fed to Godzilla. That's an alley-oop right there, bro. The Super Nintendo Switch. Like, come on.
Yeah, that's almost like a give me. It's almost like written.
And then bring back, like, you look at people going crazy for a freaking gray PS5 and PS5 Pro. Bring back the gray with the purple buttons, bro. Nintendo Switch.
Rumor is that the buttons are going to be colored because apparently, according to the Nintendo YouTubers, the game prompts when they are referencing a button, it's in a color, and they've not done that in eon. So there's people saying that maybe the next iteration of the console has colored buttons akin to the Super Famicom. So who knows? Who knows? But anyways, that is our show. So again, catch us again next Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern when we will be back with the full panel and ripping everything that happened this past week or this upcoming week to shreds. So yeah, have a great night, everybody, and peace out.
Game on.